Itadori understands life and love better than Sukuna. And how does Gege illustrate the power of love and connections? Hello, my name is Serena, and you might have known me from TikTok, Serena in 2D. Unfortunately, my TikTok account was banned, but that just makes me want to make more videos here on YouTube, so I hope you'll stick around. So we're gonna go over how Itadori views the value and meaning of life, the strength that can be found in community and connection, the way that sacrificial youths are presented in the series, and conditional and unconditional forms of love. And we have to talk about how in chapter 266, Itadori speaks to Megumi like someone who knows what it's like to not want to live anymore. When Sukuna asks Itadori, "What is this all about?" it seems almost like it's Itadori being challenged to answer, what is the meaning of life? Because that's essentially what Itadori is showing Sukuna in this moment. Because we know that it's not just about his past. It's about the connections that Itadori had with the people in his town. It's about Itadori finding meaning in the small things. These are moments, these are people that Itadori cherishes in a way that Sukuna simply cannot. Ephemerality, death, pain, sickness, and aging are all major components of life and have been highlighted beautifully in Jujutsu Kaisen. And one of Itadori's abilities is taking pain and fear and transmuting it into power. Cursed energy is rooted in suffering, and Itadori is someone who accepts suffering and is able to turn it into something positive, to utilize it, not rejecting it or deleting it out of existence. We see Itadori talking about purpose because he puts so much weight on this ability to live a good life, die a good death, save people, but there's still meaning in a life that doesn't accomplish these things. While Itadori is talking about his life, he also brings up little anecdotes that include his community. Even though we don't see these people, it still resonates, right? We have Itadori talking about the places that he visited, his grandfather, the people that are planting flowers in his town, and he doesn't even know who they are. There's even the equipment that was taken out of the playground that he had almost hurt himself really badly on. There's even that moment where Itadori reflects on the death of his grandfather's friend and how they attended his funeral, but if Itadori's grandfather had died first, would that friend have been at his grandfather's funeral? Again, there's this beautiful acknowledgement of the connection between people, whether seen or unseen, death uniting, and how Itadori was built up into a person that could understand all of this. And that beautiful, beautiful moment where we see Itadori reflecting on his fallen friends and family. But look at how they're portrayed, smiling. Even Junpei. Their deaths aren't just a source of sadness for Itadori. Again, he's transferring that kind of pain into power, into lessons. If there's one section of the JJK fandom that I have a little bit of beef with, it's the power scalers. And that's not because fighting isn't important in the series. Of course it is. Have fun, enjoy the series however you want. But the thing is, I noticed that there's an uncomfortable amount of people that place all the importance on a character on how strong they are and how they would do in a 1v1, when JJK is about community, about the strength that others can give you as well. It's not just about individualism. That's a part of it. I know this, but also the ability to work together with other people. And I wonder if these power scalers notice that they might inadvertently be aligning themselves with our villain, with Sukuna, who only cares about power and uses that as a form of hierarchy. But again, Itadori is showing so much wisdom. He understands the world in a way that Sukuna does not. Even though he's only, like 15, 16? And Sukuna has this whole air about him that he understands the meaning of love and life and how weaker creatures should live. But Itadori knows there's value in every life, that everyone's connected, that we have these little moments, that we are affecting one another's lives, even if we live in seemingly complete isolation. Since the beginning, since Volume 0, JJK has largely been a story about young people who don't value their lives enough, sometimes seeing their own deaths as a solution to a problem. In Volume 0, Yuta wanted to take his own life and attempted to do so, but Rika stopped him. But why did he want to do this? It's because he saw himself as nothing more than a burden, someone who would only bring harm to others. But through his journey in Volume 0, we see that he's able to see that he is worthy of love and understanding, and that there's other people out there who have suffered in ways similar to himself. When it comes to Itadori, it might seem a little bit less obvious how he falls into this category, but remember, Itadori was sacrificing himself through being Sukuna's vessel. And yes, of course, it's a means to an end. It's something that we established really early on and is even seemingly signed off on by Gojo himself. He's a good guy, right? So how bad could this decision be? Well, we learned that Gojo had been holding back on a finger in hopes that maybe he could save Itadori. And Itadori, though, takes on these burdens so much. He takes everything so personally and wants to do his best. He's this good kid, and Gojo notes this, that thinks that him dying is going to help others. And think about it, with both Yuta and Itadori, we have both of them tied to this dark energy source, with something a bit twisted, something that can be seen as a burden. And what did we see with Yuta? Well, he grew from his experiences with Rika. He took on responsibility and understood his role in her creation, and he was able to let her go. Now with Itadori, I see him growing through Sukuna in a way that allows him to value life, value his own life outside of being sacrificial, because he's challenged in these ways with this dark force that works in the opposite direction of him. Also in this chapter, it looks like Itadori might be on the way to absorb Sukuna into himself. Again, transferring something that's negative into something more positive, something that he can control. Now let's talk about Megumi. With this treasure knife, okay, all jokes aside, Megumi is uncomfortably self-sacrificial, and this is something that Gojo has to bring up to him. He talks to him about how he shouldn't be using his own sacrifice as a way to save others, and instead he should fight in a way that would lead to a win even if he died. Not that he would die in the course of winning. So, fighting with all that you have while still having some sense of self-preservation. And I just love how Gege has so much empathy for young people who have so much on their shoulders and who take on a large amount of personal responsibility. We see this, of course, with Itadori, because while we might want to blame Wasuke for Itadori's focus on saving people, Wasuke also wanted Itadori to enjoy his life. That's why he told him to join a club, to spend time with other students, his own peers, and not just worry about him. But of course, Itadori, being the good little grandson that he was, took Wasuke's words so deeply to heart, where he told him to save people. But Wasuke also said, doesn't have to be everybody. He wanted him to be a good kid and to use that abnormal amount of strength for good, to help others. But he also wanted him to care about his own life, to enjoy it. And that reminds me a bit of Gojo, who also wanted young people not just to live, not just to survive, but also to enjoy their youth, to have fun, to make friends. Jujutsu Kaisen is published in Shonen Jump, which targets primarily teenage boys. And in Japan, we know that there is a lot of pressure put on teenage boys. The fact that they need to score high grades, to have this kind of value tied into what they produce. And of course, this applies to young men across the globe. But we also know that Japan suffers from a high suicide rate, especially amongst teenagers. So I find this story to be especially poignant and heartwarming when it's telling young men that their lives have inherent value and they deserve to make connections with others. So in this chapter, we're connecting all of these pieces together and seeing how value in a life isn't placed upon what you were able to accomplish, what dream you were able to make come true, but instead about simply living, existing, and your inherent connections that come from you just being. Let's talk about Itadori's conversation with Megumi. The amount of empathy that Itadori has is so beautiful. And it's important that he has this understanding of grief and suffering. Again, this is a big part of his character. And so all of this has been building up to the moment where he has this conversation with Megumi about his own reticence to being saved. Instead of trying to pressure Megumi into wanting to live, telling him that there's so much that life has to offer, he comes to him with a personal anecdote about his grandfather and how he watched him suffer with cancer. He saw his grandfather refuse treatment because it was just too much. Living life like this wasn't worth it for him, and he was ready to move on. And so, he's likening this extreme physical pain to the suffering, the emotional suffering of what Megumi is going through right now. And this beautifully validates how Megumi is feeling real pain. And that's important because a lot of people, and unfortunately a lot of fans, overlook what Megumi has been going through. But this is real. And this is something that is debilitating, like a physical pain. Instead of trying to guilt him into why he should keep living, he simply lets him know that he'd be lonely without him. And this is beautiful because it ties into how Megumi spoke to Itadori after the Shibuya arc, where Itadori was at such a low point that he didn't feel like he deserved to live. Even after speaking to Yuta, it was Megumi who truly made him feel like he can make a positive impact on someone's life. Sukuna acts as an agent of suffering, but in this way, he has linked Megumi and Itadori in a way similar to how in the real world, suffering can bring people together, in a way that happiness just doesn't. So Sukuna has inadvertently made both of them stronger, has strengthened their bond, and proven how important other people are in becoming stronger. Which of course goes against his whole loner spiel and how love is worthless. We're going to see him get taken down by the power of love, and we're seeing that happen through Itadori and Megumi. How does one gain love? With Sukuna, he sees love as something conditional, something that he earns through being powerful, that other people loved him because of that strength that he had, not because of who he was as a person. Reminding me a bit of the whole, are you Gojo Satoru because you're the strongest, or are you the strongest because you're Gojo Satoru? And then, of course, there's Itadori, who knows that love is just something that comes with existing. It's something that is not earned, it's unconditional. Sukuna places a lot of importance on perfection. I mean, he's even the person that Kashimo, when going up against him and would later be taken down a few moments later, couldn't help but point out that this man was perfection. He was perfectly suited for his craft, and in that way, he was beautiful. Sukuna cares about being the best, about being perfect. And even in these small details in this chapter, we see that juxtaposition between his perfection and Itadori's imperfection. Sukuna is able to hit a perfect bullseye, but he doesn't see any value in Itadori's humble town, which, yes, it's not the prettiest or most exciting town, but there is still beauty to be found in it. But Sukuna sees nothing of value within it. And that's something that Itadori pities him for. Unfulfilled wishes and lives cut too short are commonplace in this series and are a big part of people's frustration with it. And while I do have some of these same frustrations, I can't help but admit that it ties into the type of story that Gege is trying to tell. And it's not just to seem like an edgelord, no, it's instead to show the value in lives, even if all of their dreams weren't able to be accomplished, even if they weren't the strongest. At the time of editing this video, it's been announced that Jujutsu Kaisen will end on September 30th. We knew things were coming to an end, but now we have an official end date. I'm excited because how great the most recent chapters have been. It's giving me hope that this is going to end on a high note. If you're watching this video before the series has ended, let me know what your predictions are and just how you feel about this news. And for everyone in the future, where the series is already wrapped up, let me know what you feel about the ending. I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about it, and I'll be making a video for it on YouTube. So make sure to subscribe, and thank you again for all of your support.